Hi, thanks for joining me again today. I am super excited. I've actually really been looking forward to this one for those of you who are used to watching or have watched any of these interviews in the past. They're almost always with franchisors talking about their brand and why them, why you should get involved with their opportunity. Um, and this one's a little bit unique. I have a powerful voice in franchising, somebody who's actually here in my hometown. We've both been in franchising here in Tulsa for many years, but I think, gosh, we first met at a lunch maybe 7 years ago, and that was a one-time thing. And then we've developed a relationship over the last year. But I am really excited to have Shannon Wilburn with me today. She is the founder of Shine Executive Coaching, but maybe more relevant to our conversation today, the founder of Just Between Friends franchise systems. And I'm going to let you tell your story a little bit about that before I tell everybody what that is. But
Yeah.
so that you know, that whoever's watching this is Shannon was the founder of a franchise system, built it to pretty substantial numbers, and is now exited to one of her top performing franchisee, I guess. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. So Shannon Wilburn, living here in Jinx, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Tulsa, co-founder of Just Between Friends. Started the brand in my living room with my co-founder, Devin Tackett. And this was when I lived in South Tulsa, John,
Yeah.
and in Cedar Ridge, there in a small house. I think my living room was just tiny. And we decided to have a consignment sale. Not something that I had ever attended, but we had friends that had seen this in Fort Worth and had suggested we start this here. And so we convinced 17 of our friends from church to bring us their gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment, so that we could sell it on consignment for them. And we did that in my living room. Devin and I sold $2,000 worth of merchandise, and we each made $150. I think it was the hardest $150 I think I've ever made. And this was in 1997. And the shoppers that came were saving 50 to 90% off retail. So they were really excited to get these deals. And the sellers were making 60 to 70% on whatever they were selling. So they were excited because after the event, these people saved money, these people made money, and everybody was happy. And so they're like, when are we doing this again? And Devin and I looked at each other and we're like, are we doing this again? And someone had tried to buy my couch. It was inside, and we were using the kitchen drawers as cash drawers. So it was a true, like little infant sale.
Right.
Well, we decided to start doing that every 6 months, because that's when people are clothing their children, every 6 months. And we added toys and baby equipment. We went to a church gymnasium. Then we went we went from my house to a 3-car garage. My rich friend in South Tulsa had a 3-car garage. That was where we went next. And we went to a church gymnasium. Then we went to the Tulsa Fairgrounds, and we
Hmm.
grew at the Tulsa Fairgrounds until 2003. 2003, we decided to franchise the brand. And there's a whole story around that, and started franchising January of 2004. We had 10 locations that we had helped get started in other areas.
Right.
Um, and so they became our first franchisees. I had an elementary education degree, and my business partner had a journalism degree. So neither one of us knew you're not supposed to let people use your name. So we had 10 locations before we started franchising, which worked in our favor. I didn't know that having a proof of concept, I didn't know the term,
Right.
much less that it was a good idea. So that was totally the Lord was just watching out for us. So we had 10 franchises when we started. So started selling franchises, grew the brand to 150 plus locations in 33 states. And last year, the brand did 50 million in system-wide sales.
That's
So
awesome.
with those franchise owners. So it has been a fun and wild ride. I sold the brand in December of 22. and to my largest multi-unit
Mhm.
franchisee, which just is not typically done.
Right.
Usually brands are sold to private equity or a platform company or a competitor. And I have had the great privilege to get to watch someone grow in the brand as a very, very successful multi-unit franchisee,
Yeah.
doing amazing things. And she kind of checked that off her list and decided she wanted to be the franchisor. And so we made that happen. So
We were just talking about that a little bit, and I think that speaks a lot to you as a person and a leader. And it wasn't about cashing out, but it was, I mean, I don't want to speak for you because I'm
yeah,
starting to
no,
put words in your mouth a little bit
yeah,
here, but it seems to me it was about the legacy of the business and about the people that you had mentored and watching them blossom into something similar. Is
yeah.
that fair?
And yes, I think if you're a brand of any size, like really, I think even emerging brands are
Mhm.
approached by private equity. But when you've been around a while, you know a lot of the players in the space, and you are looking for strategic partnerships, and not to get too way down that path, because I don't know that that's super relevant to your audience. But I didn't think I was ready to sell. Um, and but Tracy was someone who I could see continuing to lead the brand with the culture that we
Mhm.
had established, the core values that were already a huge part of the brand. And yeah, the money thing it's something that's very tempting, especially for franchisors out there, because you have this bright, shiny, these people
Right.
loads of money want to give you money. And but that comes with things sometimes that aren't necessarily good for franchisees.
Yeah.
But lots of times it's awesome for franchisees when private equity comes in, because they can infuse a lot of capital.
Right.
They can help with technology, help with the systems support, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's if you get the right partner, whether it's the largest multi-unit franchisee or private equity or a strategic partner,
Yeah.
things can go really well. And in our case, things are going really well, which is fun to be a part of. So I'm still helping the brand in a very minute
Yeah.
space on the advisory board, that type of thing. So
Well, I have no doubt it was ready if you had wanted to, but in fact, we glossed over a lot of the part where you got involved with the largest nonprofit franchise organization in the world, the International Franchise Association, right? I mean,
yeah,
you did a lot. In fact, that's where we had lunch. You hosted a regional event here in Tulsa, and I attended. I was fairly new as a franchise consultant at that point in time. It was
Franchise
probably
Business Network
that was it. Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
vault, probably.
That's where it was. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was 2017, maybe
yeah,
somewhere thereabouts.
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
And and I know you did a lot in franchising, for and it just for people who get involved at that level, it's a special it takes a special person because it's a lot of commitment, a lot of time, and you don't get paid for it.
Right.
And it doesn't, there's connections and stuff, right? But it doesn't really directly benefit your brand or anything.
Yeah, I
So
will tell you, I think it's a lot. In our brand especially, we have an expectation for high engagement from
yeah,
franchisees, because we know it is a significant part of their success if they can stay engaged with the franchisor and with their peers. And it's the same thing for franchisors. If if I can invest time into being around peers who are doing things well, then that rubs off on me. And I knew that my franchisor acumen
yeah.
needed a lift. And when I joined the IFA in 2007, I was like, I wish I would have known about this for like in the
Right.
past, because I had gone 4 years without being a member of the IFA. And so we had wasted lots of time, wasted lots of money in
Mhm.
those 4 years. I could have just become a member of IFA, asked a few questions, and saved myself several $100,000. And so anyway, I think
Yep.
it's the same within franchise systems. If
Sure.
you get into a franchise system that has some high performers, like, get in the room with them and
Yep.
figure out, like, what are they doing that's different than what I'm doing? How can I emulate what they are doing? In fact, Tracy, the new CEO of Just Between Friends, tells a story that when she became a franchisee of Just Between Friends, she had, and I don't want to put words in her mouth either, but
Yeah.
I've heard her tell this story, that she was a Cookies by Design franchisee first,
Uh-huh.
and had gotten out of that business and was looking for her next thing. And I think she saw us on the Today Show. We had some media in whatever year that she bought, I think, which was 2008 or 2009. And she saw it. She had never been to a Just Between Friends event. She had never heard of it before. She was in a market where we didn't have a location, but she saw it and it sounded like something that she would enjoy doing it. She's a master marketer. And so she went ahead and signed on the dotted line after we went through the whole process of awarding her a franchise. And then the first thing that she did with her business partner at the time was find out who was the highest performer besides the corporate location,
Right.
and who was doing a bang up job. And that was Kathy Winslow in Oklahoma City. So she and her business partner flew to Oklahoma City, participated in that event, learned a ton. And then guess what? She did well herself.
I'll bet.
Yeah,
It seems very logical and intuitive, but you and I both know that doesn't happen very often. So
right.
yeah.
Yep.
Um, so why, to go back a little bit, like
Yeah.
why franchising? Why not just, I mean, you obviously built something here. I know how big the fairgrounds is. For those of you who don't know, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I mean, it's so big that they run an indoor automobile race there because it's the only facility in the country that will handle it. So
we
you could
weren't
fit.
we weren't in the we weren't in the big building. We
Oh,
were in
okay, you were in
we
the.
were we were in 58,000 square feet.
That's still huge,
So
right? I
yeah,
mean,
I
there's.
mean, yeah. Yeah, 58,000 square feet of children's and maternity items, toys, and baby equipment. Yeah, it's a lot.
So
Um,
you've got this going and it's going well. What inspired you to become a franchise? I mean,
yeah,
why?
so
Yeah.
so backing up a little bit, I was a mom
Right.
of two elementary school kids when in 2003. I was also running my location. It was part-time. It felt, I had a business partner, so it wasn't as full-time as maybe it
Yeah.
is now. I had a part-time job working 30 hours a week. Um, I was the youth minister's wife, which is an unpaid volunteer position.
Right.
You're the girls' youth minister. And then we had 10 other locations that they were calling and saying, Shannon, how do I market? Shannon, this consigner has this question. I don't know how to respond, before Chat GPT,
Right. Right.
and I was just very overwhelmed, and I was complaining to a small business owner, and I just said, oh my gosh, my sales coming up, and I'm answering the phone to all these people who I've helped get started, and they're asking all these questions. And he said, well, Shannon, are you profitable? And I said, yeah. He said, are the ones that you've helped get started in these other areas, are they profitable? And I was like, well, I would assume so, because they're still doing it. And he said, well, you should franchise. And he made it sound so easy.
Oh gosh.
He said it's like a business in a box. You put together an operations manual, all those questions that people are asking you, just write down the answers. And you get an attorney and put a contract together, and then they pay you a percentage of their sale. It's called royalties. And so I left there very intrigued, and I drove straight to Barnes and Noble, bought the book Franchising for Dummies.
Right.
And by the way, Michael Seid is still, he's one of the authors, and he authored it with Dave Thomas of Wendy's, who has passed. But Michael Seid is still involved in the International Franchise Association. So I read that from cover to cover, called my business partner and said, "What do you think?" And we prayed about it and started asking questions. And before you knew it, we were franchising. So, and this was back, I think, in the last 20 years, like service-based franchises have come a long way
Absolutely.
with technology. So I thought McDonald's is a franchise, it's a brick and mortar. We're an event-based business where people gather 2 times a year. Can this even be franchise? Well, it turns out it can. Um, but we just weren't sure. I think what no one told me was, you're getting out of the business you're in, children's consignment, you're getting into the business of franchising. It's a completely different business model. Over here, you're helping people find deals. You're bringing consigners and sellers and shoppers together into a welcoming, friendly venue where they can, you know, get good deals and make some money. And
Right.
over here, you are awarding franchises. You are helping with marketing, with technology, with legal, with legislative, with operations, just all of the stuff that you have to do. And I didn't count the cost for sure. In the
Yeah,
beginning,
it's
for sure.
interesting you say that because, while I'm in my role, I deal primarily with people who are looking at franchise concepts to open up
Yeah.
a unit or a location. I do get these inquiries all the time. I've got fill in the blank random business and I want to become a franchise.
Yeah.
And two things. Number one, I told them exactly what you just said. Are you prepared to get out of the lawn mowing business or whatever it is and into the franchising business? Because they
Yes.
are two different things. One's your vehicle, the other is your business.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I tell them is, you'll get offers to do your legal paperwork, your disclosure document and your operations manual for $25,000-$30,000.
No,
But
it's like 100.
well,
It's like ridiculous.
I've heard, well, and this has been a few years, but I've heard
Okay.
people say that, oh, you could become a franchise for 25 grand. And legally in 37 states, you probably could, but you're not prepared
That doesn't
to,
mean you can sell it.
can't
Like,
sell it,
it's
you can't
right,
support it, you can't
right.
train it, you can't,
Yeah.
and so
You have to be well capitalized for sure.
I tell people $1 million.
Yeah, that's what I
And
tell people too.
yeah,
We had nothing. We
yeah.
bootstrapped. I have no idea why we're here.
Well,
Again, no,
but
I learned the hard way.
I think it's a testament to you and to people who like you who are really passionate about not just making money, but about everybody else being successful too. That's what, to me, and again, not to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah.
to me, what a successful franchisor is all about is not just being about them. It's about their whole ecosystem of franchisees, their customers. Everybody needs to win to have a successful
Yeah,
model.
I had that conversation with someone today. I can't even remember who I was talking to, but I said, "Oh, I know who it was." It was well, I can't say. So anyway, well, I'll just say it was a local franchisee for a mosquito business.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking because I need services. And he was talking about his franchisor before he knew that I was from the franchise arena. And so I said, "Listen, franchising is very cyclical. Franchisors need franchisees to do well.
Mhm.
Franchisees need franchisors to do well. It is this wheel of, if one gets out of balance, the whole thing goes, it's like,
For
so
sure.
you have, there's just this delicate balance of relationships and making sure your franchisees are profitable and highly satisfied. And it's a dance because
Yeah,
we're human. It can be a litigious arena.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think now we've spent a few minutes, and for those of you who have watched all the way through to here, are now probably ready to jump on your bandwagon and say, "What's Shannon doing next?" So we can join that. But so Shannon, being getting into the business coaching arena, I want to start with, before we talk a little bit more about your coaching business. Um, Folks who are looking at this probably following me because they're thinking about getting into a franchise. What kind of
Yep.
advice have you given people who came into your, whether you call them discovery days, meet the team days, or whatever, in your
Yep.
process, let's say, over the years? And what kind of advice would you give to people who are thinking about getting into franchising, both in terms of what they're looking for and what they might look for in the leadership of that brand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because I think there's lots of times why people are looking at franchising, because it's a less risky business model. You're in business for yourself, but not by
Right.
yourself. And but I think you are going into quote unquote a partnership. You are investing your hard earned dollars, your time into a brand that is hopefully going to give you the keys to success. And you have to be ready to follow
Mhm.
what has worked. And I think there's lots of people who think they are ready to follow, but really they don't love to follow, they love to lead. And so keeping that in mind, like when I sold my brand, I'm like, what am I gonna do? There's all of these franchise brands that I'm friends with, and I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. And then I'm like, wow, I don't think I'd be a very good franchisee. I think I would be, you know, hard to
Yep.
be a franchisee. Not that I couldn't do it, but I think the franchisor and I would have to come to some type of agreement. I want to be able to give you advice. Will you
Right.
go with that? So, anyway, so I think making sure to do your due diligence on the brand that you're looking at. Um, there are these, and I think sometimes there are brands that become like the darling of the day. And they could be the darling of the day for multiple reasons. Maybe they're the darling of the day because their unit level economics are freaking amazing. And okay, I can have an average unit volume of $1 million and I can put $300,000 in my pocket every year. Heck yeah, where do I sign up?
Right.
Those are so few and far between. Okay. But I think sometimes we get, as people who are looking to where do we invest our time, where do we invest our money, those types of things. Um, I just, if I could encourage everybody, I want you to do your due diligence with the brand, like understand who the leadership is, have conversations with the leadership. Absolutely, 100% do not buy a franchise if you have not talked to 3 franchisees. Like,
Yep.
it's your job.
Yep.
You're about to invest probably the second biggest investment in your life, maybe the biggest investment in your life after your house. Um, in something that you need to believe in it. It's a risk.
Well,
Um, so
I
that
think that it's interesting, and the word used, darling. I'm sure you hear this all the time too, because I hear it at least once a week. John, what's the hot franchise right now? What's hot? What do I need to get into? What's a And I go, well, I'm going to give you 10 names, and 9 of them are likely to be out of business in 5 to 6 years. But one of them's going to hit it really big. Do you want those odds?
right. Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
and people, they always seem taken aback by the fact that, oh, it's not automatic. Well, no, hot can, for my world, hot often means because they've got a really good sales team.
Yeah.
They've packaged this opportunity up into something flashy,
Yep.
and they sell 50 units real fast, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. And particularly if you get into the broker world where I live, and you get on our radar, you can do that really fast with that splash. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just
Right.
means they sold a bunch of franchises, right? I mean,
And
gosh,
yeah, and
Menchie's or yeah.
I'm on the other end of it. Sometimes, seeing, oh wow, now they have litigation. And this is not always the case,
Right.
right? So there's this term that is starting to be used within the International Franchise Association right now, responsible franchising. And there's a guy leading the charge. His name's Aaron Harper. He has a brand called Rolling Suds, and he is out there saying, okay, we have to grow responsibly. Well, what does that mean? So if you have a brand that is not well funded and sells 100 units, those franchise fees are probably going to brokers like you, and
Mhm.
there's multiple broker organizations out there. And so the brand is left with you know pennies
Right.
from that franchise fee. To I'm being a bit facetious, but they're left with,
Well,
maybe
it's
30% of the franchise fee or something like that to be able to support the
yeah.
franchise. And until that franchise starts having some
Yeah.
recurring revenue, and then the franchisor can say, okay, those franchise royalties are helping us support you. But there's a long time of space where the franchisor needs capital. And when the franchisor needs capital and the franchisees need support, there's a little bit
Yeah.
of a rub. And it can get a little bit ugly in there sometimes. And so what you're saying is true. And when it gets ugly, sometimes there's no recovery.
Yeah.
Um, there lots of brands get through it,
Well, I
but
think I love the term responsible franchising because I think that, to go back, we talked about a couple minutes ago that we're all in it together,
yep,
and both sides, when I say sides, the franchisee and the franchisor, both need each other,
yep,
and both need to be successful at the same pace. And I think everybody, I say everybody who opens or starts a new brand goes in with this idea of we're going to have 100 units in our first year, and
right.
and it just I
Doesn't
think
happen.
it's the wrong focus. I mean, if that's
Yep,
their focus, I think they're a little misguided, and not going to be in a position to best support their franchisees, which
yep,
I'm going to circle back to one other thing, in due diligence that I think is really important. And I talk to people that I work with a lot, is that company culture, is when you meet the leadership, when you meet the franchisees, and have these conversations with them, how do you feel? And people, you can just see their eyes roll back, like, what do you mean? I'm supposed to be looking at data like item 7, 19, item 6. What's going on with, how does this make money? And I said, well, the money will come if you're in the right place, the right brand for you, when you really understand what you have to do every day for the brand to be successful, and you've got the support of that. When it all lines up, it's magical.
yes,
But if you're going into and maybe that culture is you're too entrepreneurial, like Shannon is, and you
yeah,
couldn't be a good franchisee, that's
yep,
important to learn,
yep.
So,
I can't echo that enough about the culture.
yeah.
Because leadership probably attracts like-minded people.
Sure.
That's so just being in this new space of coaching franchisors and coaching franchisees and coaching founders and entrepreneurs, I get to talk to a lot of people and have conversations with them. And usually within, 5 or 10 minutes, I know, like, I'm going to be able to work with this person, or I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to work with this person because of, you know, ego,
Sure.
or just if you're not aligning. It's kind of like, I hate to even compare it to a marriage, but when you get married, if there's something your spouse does that bugs you, just a little bit when you get married, it's magnified once you get married. It's the same. It's the same in franchising. And so keep that in mind, because you don't want to have those frustrations all the time. Are
Right.
frustrations going to come? Yes, on both sides, on both sides. But you want to be able, I don't know if you ever recommend, do you care if I recommend two books?
Please, absolutely.
Um, there are, okay, this is one.
Oh yeah, I know
The
that book.
Wealthy
Yeah.
Franchisee. This one's newer. Like this one came out a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And Scott Greenberg, he actually has another book that he launched at IFA in February of this year. But this is really good to read because he was a franchisee.
Yeah.
Now he speaks at franchise conferences. So he was an Edible Arrangements franchisee. So good, so helpful if you're looking at franchising. And then the other one is this one. Profitable Partnerships by Greg Nathan, because it honestly, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And knowing and understanding your role as a franchisee in the franchise system ecosystem is helpful. So
Those are great. I think that
yeah,
those are really good. As you're going through this, and really the process where I lead people through up to the point they sign a franchise agreement, it very much is like dating. And that franchise agreement is very much like a marriage certificate, right? Because and I've used that analogy many times that you need to make sure that you've asked the right questions and you're really gotten to know them along that discovery process, and not just because they're
yeah,
the darling or the hot brand of the day,
yeah.
flavor of
And
the
I'll
month. So
I'll tell you, John, I don't know if you've talked about the 6 stages of franchising. That is, if any of your listeners want to look
mhm.
that up,
Yep.
it's so key, because when you first buy a franchise, you are in that glee stage. It is like the honeymoon.
Yep.
You're like, I love my franchisor. They are amazing. They've given me this opportunity. And um, you know, pretty soon you move into the fee stage. Like, oh, I did, $30,000 this month, and I had to pay my franchisor 2,500, 3,000 of that. This doesn't feel good,
Right.
Like, okay, what have they done for me lately? And so, like, looking at that, reading, we would talk about the 6 stages of franchising in our franchisee training, our
Mhm.
like in our onboarding, because I wanted my franchisees to know, hey, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when you're mad at me,
Remember.
just know that's normal.
That's right.
You're gonna be mad at me. You're gonna be upset that I made a decision that affected you in a negative way, or so you thought,
Yeah.
and you're gonna be mad, and then let's have a conversation. So I
Well,
think
what's interesting about that though is a lot of the times those decisions, and I think most people watching this know I'm a multi-unit franchisee. I've been in different systems, and so most of those decisions, not always, but most of them are made in the best interest of everybody, not
yes,
just you.
not
It's
just you.
it's and so what you're talking about is somebody who's essentially in that teenager stage, right?
Yeah,
They've been around long enough. They know that they think they know everything, and they think they
yeah,
know their business, but and it may take a year before they look back and go, "Oh, you remember when I was mad at you last year about that decision? Turns out you were right."
yeah, yeah,
And and now, when you're dealing with a system that's got 150 locations or 1,000 locations or whatever the number is, you're going to make some decisions as the leader that people aren't going to like.
right.
There's going to be somebody who's not happy with it, but
Yeah.
maybe those people shouldn't have been franchisees to start with, right?
Yeah,
So,
or they may just have to like get happy, is what I would say, like,
yeah,
in my mind. I don't know that I ever said this to any franchisees, but like, get happy or move on.
yeah,
Like, this is how and I wasn't trying to be hard on them or anything, but my job was to protect and grow the brand.
Absolutely. And that's
And
for everybody's benefit, not
yes,
just,
right.
and I think sometimes that's hard to see that protecting the brand protects all 150 franchisees,
Yeah,
not just you.
right.
And sometimes it's hard. And I've been on the other side. I've been the one pounding the table going, we should be doing this as
Yeah.
a
And
franchisee. And yeah,
franchisors are not, they are not perfect people.
right.
They're not. They're gonna make mistakes. They're every brand. Like, did I make mistakes? Absolutely.
Right.
I
Right.
look back and I'm like, oh,
Well,
another reason why you're gonna make mistakes in your locations. Oh,
yeah.
why did I do that? Oh, they told me not to do that, and I did it anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and I wish I would have listened. That running a business is hard,
Yeah.
and this is normal. So,
So
so expect it.
if you've made it this far with us, you've got hopefully a really good understanding of how Shannon can help you. So let's, as we wind this up, talk about what you're doing now, whether it's a franchisee or a franchisor
Yeah,
or just an independent business or
yeah,
salesperson. Maybe they need coaching.
yeah.
Um, so talk a little bit about what you're doing, how
Yeah,
it
so
helps, who might be a good candidate to help.
yeah, when I left, when I had the transaction selling just between friends in December of 22, I had done a lot of praying. Like, what am I going to do? I told you that I considered buying a franchise. Should I go be a CEO of another brand? Or I had, thankfully, in the 2 years preceding the sale of the business, we had gone through the process called EOS or traction.
Oh yeah.
And so we were running on EOS. So I was the visionary of the brand. I had hired an integrator or elevated an integrator internally to the president position. And so the hours in my day that were typically spent on all things integration, like the down and in, like managing VPs, all that kind of stuff, I no longer had to do. And so my president was doing that, and I was doing the fun stuff. I was doing culture, I was doing core values, I was doing all the up and out relationships, big picture stuff, media, that type of stuff. And so it opened up my capacity that when people would come to me and say, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" I could say yes. And it had been a while since I was able to fully and completely say yes because I was overwhelmed. Because there's a lot to do as the leader of a brand, and um, your first love is your franchise system and your franchisees, and you want to take care of them and to make sure they're getting taken care of. So once that was taken care of and I could say yes to other people, I quickly found myself coaching for free 6 people on a consistent basis. And so I thought, well, I could do coaching, I guess. I was like, coach just doesn't sound the same as CEO. There's a little bit of my pride right there, John. I was like, this just doesn't sound as good. And but I enjoyed it. I didn't know if I would enjoy it getting paid for it, because
Mm,
I think I felt like my value is because I'm doing it for free. But
mhm.
I told because I've mentored people for years, and I told those 6 clients, I said, okay, I'm gonna start charging for this. I'm gonna create a business. I'm gonna call it Shine Executive Coaching. And when I get my website up, you can let me know if you want to be one of my clients still. And all but one said yes. The other was like, we need to put it in our budget. And they were an emerging brand.
Yeah.
And so really who I help are business owners, founders, entrepreneurs. And that can come in a wide variety of places. But I want to work with people who want to scale their business and are not afraid of growth. Like if you're just like, I'm okay, like, I don't really want to work very hard, don't call me.
Okay.
But if you want to grow something, 6-figure entrepreneurs getting to 7
Yeah.
figures, like that's who I would like to work with. I love working with other franchisors. I have several franchisor clients.
Hmm.
I have a franchisee client that's a new client. And of course, I've been in a CEO group here locally for, I think, like 13 or 14 years, and
Yeah.
there four of the eight of us, they were franchisees, and so I'm very familiar with the franchise space, and so um, yeah, so
Wow.
if that sounds interesting and you don't wanna make some mistakes that maybe others have made and you want a kind of a shortcut to growth, I think getting a coach, whether that's me or someone else, would be, a good
Yeah.
idea.
Well, I agree for sure. And I can't imagine somebody, even just watching this 30 minutes, however we've been together, thinking there'd be anybody better, especially if you're in this
Oh,
franchise world. And if you're, I mean, look, even just all of your experiences and again, from my perspective, you've done it all out of what you might call a servant heart, right? Not because you're expecting something.
yeah,
The something comes. I mean, obviously you've done very well for yourself, but it's and I think that, when you're looking to somebody to help you, that's what I would be looking for, not just a formula. Don't help me fill out some forms and connect some dots and do some spreadsheets. I mean,
yeah,
that's part of it, I suppose,
yeah.
but I would want, I want to learn from your experience. I want to learn from your vision. I want to learn from, you know, your people skills and everything else and
John,
have
my past president had, and thank you for all of that. You're super kind. The My past president, she would say, "We want to learn from the mistakes of others. We don't want to be the others." I'm
I'm
like, yeah.
that's a nugget right there. I think that's
Yeah,
just become one of my new memes or whatever that I'm going to
yeah.
post, and that's a whole a LinkedIn post right there. No, I love that. So yeah, and again, anybody who watching this, I'll have Shannon's contact information at the end of the recording, so that you can reach out directly to her. But your website is
shineexecutivecoaching.com,
okay.
and I'm on LinkedIn too. It's a good
Perfect. Yeah.
place to catch me.
Yeah, that's where I am most of the time too. So this gets posted to, you'll see it on LinkedIn when we get it up, and my YouTube channel as well. So, boy, this has been a treat. Again, I really appreciate your time and getting to hear
Thank you
more
for
about your
asking
story.
me.
Yeah, this
I
was
I
fun.
love talking about business in general, and getting to do it, knowing that it hopefully maybe someone could pull a nugget out of it. That's just I love helping people, and so this was fun. Thank you for asking.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me because and again, it all shows, and I think you that all came across very well. So hopefully, all of you watching this here on April 3rd, 2024. I always like to kind of date when we did this. And
Yep.
if you'd like to get in touch with Shannon, like I said, the information will be here at the end. You can always reach her through me. My QR code to the video or the website, thatfranchiseguy.com, is there too. And thank you so much, Shannon. See you around town hopefully soon.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thanks everybody for joining us today.